Hey, before you go, let me talk to you real quick. Why is my son blowing me up and text me talking about you tripping and asking him to cut the front yard and the backyard? What's up with that?
You're a young man, ain't you?
Yeah, but he only 17 years old.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't you think a 17-year-old supposed to be cutting grass?
No, my baby don't know how to do that.
Well, is it time for him to learn?
He in school. He got finals coming up.
What that got to do with yard work? You know what? Let me say this. You know what? I was cutting grass ever since I was 6, 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
This boy 17 years old. Don't you think he need to learn how to do men stuff? He growing.
He do men stuff when he get out on that field. Hold up, let me tell you, when he get out on that field and he play ball and he get his grades, that's men stuff. So he can make a better future for us. Yard work, that's why we got you.
You funny.
Okay.
You got to be funny.
How am I funny?
You know, you think a 17-year-old boy gonna live up in this house here and he ain't gonna do no man work. That what you think? What you trying to raise, a boy or girl? Let me know now, because we'll put him in the kitchen. If you didn't want to put him in the yard, but you gonna have to do something.
He take the trash out, check the mail,
Are you serious?
clean his room. That's good enough. Some kids don't even do that.
You know what? That's why he like he is right now.
Okay.
Because his mama. You want to mama him. That's why. He's just like he is now. He don't want to do no men work. He want to hang around, play them PlayStation and play them games all day long and be on his cell phone. And he want to look at me cut the grass. Watch me cut.
He is a young, impressionable boy. He can do that.
You know
Give
what?
him a break.
You know what? I'm done talking to you. Because I see your marbles in there. I'm through.
Wow, for real?
Okay, Shalom. Okay, first and foremost, I would like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth, as well as much respect and honors to the brothers that are pushing this truth in sincerity across the four winds of this earth and risking their lives and freedom to do so. I would also like to give much honors and respect to the brothers and sisters that are of the hopeful elect that are doing their very best to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High to the best of their abilities. Shalom. I saw this short TikTok video and I just thought that I would bring out a quick lesson on it. Now, I believe this is actually a skit, I believe. But what I will say is, though, this does actually happen in reality quite often amongst our people. Okay, this happens quite often to where you're having Eve, okay, basically trying to undermine what Jake is saying. You're having Eve basically trying to buck up against the Israelite man, basically wanting to challenge the Israelite man on every little thing. Okay, now here it is in this particular video right here, this TikTok video. You have this Jake right here, this older Jake, and I believe he's the stepfather, okay, of this Eve's 17-year-old son, okay. Because, right down here in the title, it says when you tell her son to cut the grass. And so I believe, this Jake right here, he's probably the stepfather. Okay. And so, probably the reason why, Eve was no longer with the son's biological father is probably because she was doing the same thing, okay, that she's trying to do to this Jake right here. Okay. She was probably bucking up against him and challenging him on every little thing. Okay. Probably giving him hell. Okay. And he just probably said the hell with it and he bounced, But, this happens again quite often amongst our people. And this is why, you're having, the divorce rate amongst our people is just steadily on the rise. OK, and this is why you're having, a lot of, Jakes, they're no longer wanting to deal with Eve anymore because, they're getting sick and tired of Eve's BS. They're sick and tired of Eve, always wanting to, to buck up against them on every little thing. Eve wants to try to challenge them on every little thing. And when Eve can't get her way, Eve, she would try to use the children as leverage, okay, to try to get her way. Or Eve, here it is, she would threaten to call, Esau through Esau's police system on Jake and have Jake thrown out the home, This is why you're having a lot of Jakes now, they're no longer wanting to deal with Eve, okay? Because of Eve's, just her BS, her attitude, okay? And then, just wanting to challenge and, and buck up against the Israelite man on every little thing. And see, and then also, too, here it is, this Eve right here, she's actually hurting her son. She's not helping him. Okay, because here it is. You have this older Jake right here. He's trying to teach the 17-year-old, some responsibility. He's trying to teach the 17-year-old, on how to be a man. Okay, and then here it is. You have Eve. She's getting in the way of that. Okay, and so she's actually hurting the son. Okay, and see, and as I was saying, here it is. I mean, this is why I know a lot of Eves, are becoming single. This is why a lot of Eves are single out here. This is why you're having a lot of Jakes. They no longer wanting to deal with Eve anymore. And in many cases, Eve, she would try to, buck up against it, on Jake on every little thing. And then, Jake just says the hell with it and he leaves. And then Eve, she's left raising the children, by herself. And then also in many cases, okay, when Eve is left raising the children by herself, a lot of boys, they grow up, they become, very emotional. They become effeminate. A lot of them, they turn to the Mo agenda. Okay, a lot of girls, okay, they become 304s. They take rides on a cock carousel when, in many cases, it's just Eve raising, the children. Okay. Also, too, I mean, in many cases, when Eve is just raising the children, is left just raising the children by herself. A lot of times those children, they will turn to other, forms of mischievous behavior that will end them up in Esau's, juvenile detention centers or Esau's prison systems or even 6 feet under. Okay. But, this video right here, this is also an indicator, that we got to get the hell up out of Babylon the Great. It's an indicator that we need deliverance. Okay. Because everything over here in Babylon the Great is totally out of order. Everything has been turned upside down. And that's because you have the wicked that are currently in rulership. And that wicked is Esau Edom. And what these devils have done, these devils have given our women, liberty, to basically, to do these things that they're doing. Okay, to try to, buck up against, the Israelite man on every little thing. To try to challenge the Israelite man on every little thing. And then when they can't get their way, when Eve can't get her way, she'll call, the police on Jake and have Jake removed from the home. But, Esau, he gives, our women liberty to do these things. And so this is why, we need deliverance. This is why we need to get the hell up out of Babylon the Great, because everything is totally out of order over here. It's totally out of order. And so, I saw this, this short video right here, and I just thought that I would bring out a quick lesson. I'm going to go ahead and bring out a few scriptures, and then we will end the lesson. Okay, the first scripture I want to go to is in the book of Deuteronomy, and this is chapter 28, and this is verse 56. And it reads, "The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter." Okay, now here it is in this TikTok video that I shared in the beginning. This is a prime example, of Eve, having that evil eye, towards her husband. Because here it is. I mean, you had the older Jake, the husband. He was trying to get the 17-year-old, to help him out in the yard, to basically, help him do some yard work. Basically trying to teach the 17-year-old some responsibility and to basically, try to show him how to be a man. But then yet here it is. You have Eve, she's getting in the way of that. Okay. And she was basically trying to undermine, okay, what the older Jake was trying to do. Okay. She was basically bucking up, okay, and challenging, okay, this older Jake on what he was trying to do. And that right there is an example of Eve having that evil eye, towards her husband. Because again, I mean, she was challenging him. Okay, she was bucking up against him, and she was basically disrespecting him. Okay, because also too, she had mentioned that, that's the reason why she have him around. Okay, basically saying that, basically it was the older Jake's responsibility to do the yard and not her son's. And that right there is just total disrespectful and wicked as hell, And then also too, the Eve had mentioned that, the 17-year-old son, he was too young to be doing yard work because he was only 17 years of age. And that right there, that is just crazy as all outdoors. That's a lie, okay? Because 17 years old is not too young, okay, to be doing yard work. Here it is, the older Jake in the video, I think he said he started helping out in the yard, when he was about maybe 6 or 7 years old. And myself, personally, I want to say I was maybe around maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 years of age when I started helping out, with doing yard work as well. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 28, and this is verse 56 again. It says, "The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. Her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. And see also too, many of our women, they have an evil eye towards their children, towards our seeds, towards the children as well. Because here it is, there's been many cases where you're having Eve, okay, all because she wants to go out and gad abroad. Here it is, she'll leave the children with any and everybody. Okay, and in many cases, okay, those children are neglected. Okay, those children, they get, abused in many different, ways and whatnot. That's that evil eye, okay, that, many of our women have towards their children. Okay. Also, too, here it is. I can remember not so long ago, it had came out, that you had this wicked Eve, that she had stuck her newborn baby in an oven. Okay. And that right there, that's just straight up demonic. That is just straight up wicked and foul. They're just evil as hell. Also, too, I can remember, where you had, this was a while back, where you had this little toddler. He was just roaming. I believe it was, he was a little toddler. I don't even think he could talk. He was just that young. Here it is. It was at nighttime. He was just, basically crawling around, out in the street, at nighttime, and here it is. Someone saw that little toddler crawling around, at nighttime, and they got that toddler to safety. But here it is. You had Eve basically neglecting that little toddler. That's why that little toddler was out in the street, just wandering around by himself. And again, that's that evil eye, okay, that many of our women have towards their seeds, And again, that is just straight up foul, Okay, let me see where I want to be. Okay, this is the book of Ecclesiasticus, and this is chapter 25, and this is verse 24. And it reads, of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. Okay, and see, here it is again. This Eve in the TikTok video, is an example of through the woman we all die. Because here it is. You have the husband, the older Jake, who's trying to teach the 17-year-old some responsibility and trying to basically show the 17-year-old, on how to be a man. Okay, basically trying to make the 17-year-old responsible instead of just being in the house all day, playing video games and talking on the phone and whatnot, But here it is. You have this Eve. Okay, she was trying to stop that. She was trying to prevent that. She didn't want the 17-year-old helping the older Jake out in the yard, And, again, like I was saying, she was basically undermining the older Jake. And this happens quite often amongst our people, and also, too, the Eve in the, in this TikTok video, she's actually hurting the son, the 17-year-old, because here it is. She can't teach the 17-year-old on how to be a man. She can't show him how to be a man, And then here it is. She's trying to prevent the older Jake, the husband, from showing the 17-year-old on how to be a man. And so she's actually hurting the son. Okay. And see, and again, this is why you're having, so many of our boys, they're growing up and they're becoming very emotional. Okay. A lot of the, boys that grow up and they become effeminate. Okay. A lot of them, they turn to the Mo agenda. Okay. Or here it is. In many cases, they'll end up in prison or 6 feet under. Okay. Where I want to be. Okay, this is Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, and this is verse 9. And it reads, for the blessing of the father established the houses of children, but the curse of the mother rooted out foundations. Okay, and again, okay, you had this older Jake in the video trying to teach the 17-year-old some responsibility by showing him how to, take care of the yard. Basically trying to show the 17-year-old, to be responsible and to be a man. But again, you had Eve, basically trying to get in the way, and was, basically trying to prevent the older Jake from teaching the 17-year-old, And so, basically, what this Eve is doing is she's rooting out, the foundations that this older Jake is trying to set, for this 17-year-old, And again, what this Eve is doing is she's crippling and she's hurting this 17-year-old, okay, by doing what she's doing. And see, also, too, as I was saying earlier, this is why you're having a lot of Jakes, they're staying clear of Eve, Because here it is, Eve, she wants to buck up against Jake on every little thing. She wants to challenge Jake on every little thing, and then here it is when Eve can't get her way, with Jake, she's quick to want to, call, the police on Jake and have Jake, thrown out the home. Or she wants to try to use children. She wants to try to keep, to try to get her way with Jake. She'll try to use children, basically try to keep Jake from seeing the children and whatnot. This is what a lot of, Eves do, And, I'm not doing this lesson to bash all of our women, because we do have some of our women that have come back and they're trying to do right. But the majority of our women over here in Babylon the Great, they're wicked as hell. They're through, and they're just too far gone. And this is why the majority of our women over here in Babylon the Great, they're going to fall. The majority of our women over here in Babylon the Great, they're going to be destroyed. Only the elect man, lady, and child will be delivered before the Most High destroys Babylon the Great. Okay, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 42, and this is verse 13. And it reads, "For from garments cometh a moth, and from women wickedness." Okay, and this Eve in the TikTok video, this was wickedness coming from her. Because again, she's basically trying to prevent this older Jake from, she was basically trying to prevent the older Jake from teaching the 17-year-old, some responsibility. She was basically trying to prevent the older Jake from, getting the 17-year-old to basically help him out in the yard, And, again, that's just totally going off, and again, you had this Eve, she was saying that, that the 17-year-old son, he's too young to be doing yard work. And that's just totally going off, and then, as I had mentioned earlier, she had said that, what did she say? Oh, yeah, she had said that this older Jake, that was his job, to do the yard. And that is just straight up wicked as hell. And this is just me personally. I think every, young man should learn how to, do some work in the yard, should learn how to mow the yard, And again, you had this older Jake trying to show this 17-year-old on how to do that. But then here it is, you're having Eve, she's basically getting in the way of it, Wickedness is, coming from Eve. That's what this is. She bucking up against the older Jake, challenging him on every little thing. That is just wicked as hell. And again, what she's doing is she's crippling the 17-year-old by doing this. Okay, I got one more scripture I'm going to bring out, and then we're going to end the lesson. And this is also in the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is chapter 26, and this is verse 7. And it reads, "An evil wife is a yoke shaken to and fro. He that hath hold of her is as though he held a scorpion." Okay. Now see, here it is, a scorpion. If you get stung by a scorpion and if you're not careful, that scorpion can actually unalive you. Okay. The venom in that scorpion, can actually unalive you, or it'll definitely make you sick as all outdoors. If it doesn't unalive you, that is. And so basically, an evil woman, will make your life a living hell and could possibly send you to either an insane asylum or an early grave if you're not careful. Okay. And so with that being said, men of Israel, be very careful when you're dealing with these women out here. Okay. And see, also, too, as I had mentioned earlier, I believe this older Jake, I believe he's the stepfather. Okay. And then here it is. As I was saying, more than likely, the reason why the biological father is not, married to this Eve or is no longer with this Eve is more than likely is because, he got sick and tired of dealing with this Eve's weakness. More than likely. That's more than likely the reason why the biological father is no longer with the Eve. Okay. And so, that's pretty much the point. I'm going to go ahead and end off here. I hope it was edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, Kwam Yasharal and Abal Babal. Shalom.